Welcome back to When the Kids Go to Bed. Shh. This is Chells, and I'm Truly as always. So today we have a special guest, and we've brought him on this week to do something slightly different because we're educators. We've worked in education. This is how we met, actually. We were studying a teaching diploma at college together all those years ago. Jeez, man. And we both went into education ourselves, and we have an amazing guest who is also an educator. He is also an author, has 2 books, and is an expert at classroom management. So he teaches teachers how to teach, basically. So like, you know, he's a good one to have on the show. So yes, introduce yourself, please, sir.
Thank you. That's good. I like that. I felt like P Diddy there. I like that. My name's Karl C. Pupè. I am the author of the Action Hero Teacher Classroom Management Made Simple, and the upcoming book, the imaginatively titled The Action Hero Teacher 2. Say that fast 15 times. Teachers of the Lost Class. I am an educational consultant, and I specialize in dealing with pastoral issues and SEN and SEMH, and also I've got an FRSA, so I'm a fellow in the Royal Society of the Arts. So I've got to, that's the only time I'm going to be bougie in this interview. That's the only time I'm going to be bougie.
Until we get the promo bit.
So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that.
So we wanted to get you on because with our experience and yours as well, we wanted to get an insight into what the parent's role is in education.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the parent's role in their child's education?
The parent's role is the most vital role. The parent is the first teacher. And as I always say, if people always come to me and say, Karl, I want my child to get 7s or 8s. So in old school grades, that's like A's and B's and whatnot. What do I do? And I say, love your kid. Love your kid. If you love your child and you provide a stable home, and I'm not talking about buying Maharishi trainers or what's that, Moncler or whatever these jackets. I couldn't believe it. One of these kids was like, "Oh, Moncler jacket, sir," and I'm like, $1,000 for a jacket. I know. You know what I mean? But providing a stable home, providing consistent boundaries, and being emotionally attuned to your child, the grades will come. The grades will come. So that's the most important thing. Love your kids. Love them.
And everything you just mentioned there doesn't really have anything to do with education specifically, because one of the reasons why we wanted to do this topic is to try and help parents who may not feel confident when it comes to education. And it might be because maybe they didn't have a good education, or maybe they don't feel that they have those academic skills per se, and might struggle when it comes to doing the homework with child. Maybe so they may find it difficult to help their child with education. But what you just mentioned doesn't mention it doesn't need any of those skills.
No, it doesn't. And as I always say, children spell love time. It's time. If you spend that time and you try to, I like the term intimacy. Now, when we think of intimacy with, people think of Jodeci. You know what I mean? People think of Drake. You know what I mean? But I prefer to look at it as intimacy. To see your child, to look at your child and understand. And it's with any relationship that you have. What's ended up happening is that the parents of kids, you might have biologically produced the kids, but the parents of your child are Netflix and Disney Plus. And that's why, or YouTube. And that's why when certain things happen, the parents are absolutely dumbfounded, saying, why did Johnny do this, or why did Siobhan do that? It's because you didn't know them. Yeah. So all I would say to people is that you've got to spend the time. And I know it's hard, especially cost of living crisis. A bottle of water costs 90p. Can you believe that? 90p for a bottle of water. Times are hard. But it's that time where the parent can say, you know what, let me just ask how their day was, what's going through your mind, what's troubling you, because these are the things that are important, and that will set. And it's not only important for their grades, it's important for the rest of their life, because it gives them the wherewithal to take on the stresses and the strains of life, and gives them a base for good mental health. And that's the most important thing. Forget grades. If you said to me, Karl, what would you rather have, a genius with poor mental health, or a child that's a C grade, gets 5s, 4s and 5s, and has robust mental health? Give me the mental health every single day of the week. That's the most important thing to me as an educator.
What would you say to a parent then? Say, for example, they had a very bad experience at school themselves. Maybe academically, they don't know what algebra is. They might not know, you know, what they're doing in science or whatever. And their kid comes to them and says, Mom, Dad, can you help me with these questions? And they just genuinely don't know what to do. What would you advise to say? I know what I think I would say.
Well, it's very simple. There's something called the internet. It's very, very simple.
I know, something that we didn't have when we was kids.
Exactly.
I say to the kids all the time, I'm like, I can't believe you're failing and you've got the internet. If your brain is neurotypical, like you can think and process in a way of a neurotypical person, and you're failing, there's no excuses. I'm not saying get 8s and 9s, which is like A star or A star star, but I'm saying you cannot fail. I don't understand that. So in all seriousness, there's great programs. There's things like GCSE Bite Size. In fact, the government released something called National Oak Academy, I believe. And this was a online school which was set up during COVID. And they got the best teachers in the land, the very best teachers in the UK to teach the subjects, from all the way from Key Stage 1 all the way to Key Stage 5.
And this was online, right?
This is still online. Free resource.
I remember,
So if your kid doesn't understand, say, Mummy, I don't know X equals plus squared. I'm like, listen, go on. National Oak Academy. There you go. Watch this, Johnny. You know, you get me? And you can do that. So there's so many resources online. So parents shouldn't feel intimidated. You don't have to know everything. Yeah. That's the whole purpose of the internet. There's so many resources online they can
One of the roles that I did when I was at a high school was a classroom teaching assistant.
Oh, yeah.
And I would go around literally every single subject. It wouldn't just be, some TAs are specifically in the English department, for example, but my role was I went all around the school.
I did that as well.
I even went into PE
I hated year 11 science. I was in there like, my job here is to just keep this kid
quiet
and focused. It is not to answer any of these questions. No, honestly, sometimes in maths, oh my God, sometimes I help the kid get the wrong answer. I swear to you.
When the teacher's telling you off.
Oh my God, the teacher afterwards, and I'd be like,
but by the time they hit year 11, it's a wrap. It's game over.
Yeah,
they don't know. By year 11, it's like, sir.
What I learned doing that role, though, was I did pick up a lot of... I was like, oh my gosh, oh yeah. I had a lot of aha moments in those classes, especially with the older lot who were doing their GCSEs, because, you know, you can't be in the room like her giving them the wrong answer. I don't think I really did that. I would just say, I don't actually know. Let's find out together.
There you go.
And that's something that I do with my kids. So that's for someone that is hated school or their parents hated school. You just don't really value school, or you even see school now as they're being taught a lot of stuff that they might not need, or you run a business and it's successful and you know your kids are coming into that business, but you want them to finish school with decent grades. Just sit and help them. Just sit and discover, sit and do the research on the internet with them. Absolutely. Because that way you're learning something, you're demonstrating and modeling to your child what they should do and how they can do it, and it's positive bonding time. Absolutely. As well. So,
and what Karl said, time.
Yeah,
that's what that
exactly.
is. Because time. You know, telling your child to do their homework, and especially the older they get, like you know, they can go in your room and do your homework. It doesn't mean they're going to do it. Yeah. Doesn't mean that they feel excited to do it. Whereas if they know that's time with my parent, like you said, and you're going to go for it together, or show me once you're finished, or you know, whatever, that will help encourage them to do it more.
And I don't know about you guys, maybe Karl, you'll agree. Like when you work with children, especially the SEN children, and you're doing one-to-one stuff, oftentimes I found is that the kid doesn't necessarily not understand what's happening in the classroom, but they just learn in a better way when they have more one-on-one time, when they have something explained to them. You know, the instructions might be broken down a little bit into segments rather than one full question, and just having that one-on-one time gives them that little spark. So I think that's helpful.
Absolutely.
What about then, let's talk about maybe parents whose kids are saying that they don't like school and that they're finding parents finding it difficult to get them to go to school. Like every morning it's a challenge, and the child openly says they don't want to go, and maybe they don't see the purpose of school. How do we think parents can try and navigate that situation?
So that's a very good point. It can be a minefield. It depends. There's so many reasons. So using teacher terms, we'd call them school refusers, right? So if it's really severe, so for example, my question will be why. I'll try and get to the bottom of why. Yeah. So for example, there's some kids that don't go to school because the relationships they have with their peers are not positive. There's all manner of things like bullying. There's all manner of things again, it's about context. So imagine if you're a child from a different context. So I'll give an example. If you're a traveler, for example, and you come from a different community, and then you're going into an inner city school, you don't understand the codes and the procedures of the school. Of course, you're going to say, it's with anybody, you would say, I don't want to go to school. So the first thing is we need to get to the root of why they don't want to go to school and see if we can attack it at that angle. Another issue we've got is, and again, I'm going to be slightly controversial here, is I feel that there's become a big disconnect in the way that children look at education helping their lives, especially if you come from a particular socio-economic background or you come from a particular ethnic background. Because as we've seen in the UK, it's not a meritocracy. I can't even say that word. No, a meritocracy. It's not. So the myth is, if you work really hard, you get all your grades, you will get the job you deserve. It's not that way. Yeah. It's not that way. It's broken Britain.
There's lots of graduates out there that can't get jobs.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you a super quick story. So I remember I was going to school with a young lady. I came from East London. I'm not going to say the part. It's not a nice part anyway. I just came from East. So I remember there was the irony is I became a teacher, which is, I think it's fate or something. It's the terrorism I did on all my teachers. I'm getting it back in kind. But there was a young lady, I won't mention her name. There was a young lady who was very studious, who did work very, very hard. One of her parents worked in a shoe shop. The father wasn't really around. And she said her dream was to be a barrister. That was all she was committed to. While we were trying to set fire to the classroom, she was sitting there writing in her books, being a good girl, blah, blah, blah. Cut a long story short, basically as time went on, she went to a decent uni, she got decent grades. But this is where the problem started to happen. So when I met her, I ran into her years later, and I was like, did you become a barrister then? How did that go? And she goes, I went into HR. And I'm like, what? Being a barrister was your dream? What happened? So she explained. When she left university, and I didn't know any of this stuff, to be a lawyer, you have to take something called the bar, right? Bar exam. Now, this is not funded by the government. You have to raise the money yourself, and it can be up to 8 to 10 grand. So again, her mum helped her with it and used some of her life savings to pay for this. So she said, fine, okay, got through that. And you have to be in the top 97% percentile. If you get the exam and it's 95%, they won't let you through. She managed to get 97%, which was the cutoff. She was like, great, got through there. Now, to be a barrister, you have to end up in something called the chambers. Now, chambers is basically like a guild. It's where all these barristers learn their trade. And what you do is you go in there as a researcher, and you within 7 years, you'll rise up the ranks. Now, the problem with that is if you don't know people, you can't get into her chambers. They're not opening new chambers. Some of these chambers are 200-300 years old. So she was stomping the pavement, saying, please let me get into this. I've got good grades, blah, blah, blah. But she's a working class girl, Afro-Caribbean girl, didn't have any connects. And what she realized was all her colleagues that were on the course, their parents, their mummies and daddies, were upper middle class. They were saying, you know what, you sort out my son in your accountancy firm, I sort out your son in a law firm. And this girl, within 2 years, she gave up on her dream. Because there was a gap on her CV and no law firm. She said, I will work for free for as long as you want free research. So she pivoted into HR. But that goes to show you that a lot of kids know this. They know this. They know that certain people get privilege over others. So when I talk to the kids I deal with especially, they're almost saying to me look, my brother, he went to uni, he's in 20-30 grand of debt. He's working in JD Sports. Why am I going to go
to uni?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
So what I would say to parents, pivoting back to your original point, is you have to bridge what they want to do with where they're going. So I'll give an example. I remember one time in a school I was covering a Spanish lesson, and I don't know why they put me to cover this lesson because I don't know any Spanish. All I know is C. That's all I know, C, right? I don't know any. Hola and C. That's the only thing. But I remember there was a kid in there that I knew. This kid now plays for Reading, I believe. But the kid was football mad. He hated any other lesson. So he was like, I'm not doing Spanish, get me. I'm going to play football. He's an arrogant little so-and-so, that one, right? So I remember speaking to him and he's like, I'm not doing no Spanish, right? But I said to him, okay, so we went through football and I said, okay, who do you admire? What teams? And he was like, the Man United, Arsenal, Real Madrid. And he goes, I love to play for Atletico Madrid, which is a Spanish team. Yep. Now I said, you've got a big problem. And he said, what's that? And I go, Diego Simeone, who's the manager of Atletico Madrid, doesn't speak any English. So if you go and train for him, how are you going to communicate? When he's telling you tactics, how are you going to communicate with him? And I saw a light bulb and he's like, you know, sir, hand me the sheets. And then he started to do that. So that's an example of bridging.
That's why I love kids, you know. This is wild.
All I simply did, it was nothing magic. I took what his interest was and tried to connect what he's learning with that. It's the same with like, if you've got a rapper or a singer in your class, like, I don't know, like, I hate, you know, Shakespeare. I'm like, do you use metaphors, similes? Personification? Think of your best rappers that you know. For me, it's Nas. But when people say Nas, it's Little Nas X now. Not Little Nas X. Not Nas, Nasir Jones. That's what I'm talking about.
The one with the chipped tooth, but he got it fixed.
That's what I'm saying. I say, if you want to be good at rapping or singing, you know, it would help you to know what a metaphor is or a simile is. And I think as parents and as teachers, we have to get better at bridging. You can't just say, go uni. And, you know, you go to uni and, you know, you'll get a good job. I know guys that didn't go uni. They're making peace. They're making peace. So I think that's no longer the default answer. We have
my
to try
son, for example, right now, he's like, he's not interested, not engaged, doesn't want to go, doesn't want to have a tutor.
Wow.
Nothing. Doesn't want nothing. He wants to get into music. But what are you doing with music? Not much. So what do I say to him? What do I do with him? How do I bridge music with just school in general? How?
Okay. So what I'd say to him in that particular instance, I'll say, okay, so you like music. I'll say, okay, you like music. So what do you want to be? So very Socratic questions I'll ask him. I go, what do you want to be? So chances are he'll say something along the lines of, I don't even know who these artists are. I'm showing my age now. I don't know who, just like my nephew, Little Boozy, or I don't even know who these people are. I just see balaclavas and mans are just dancing by cars. So I don't know who they, but just say, okay, dancing by cars, right? So what I'd say, and it's funny because when I worked in East London, I used to have these conversations all the time. I have no interest in school, So I'll do that thing of the English thing. I would say, okay, chances are, you are, you know, you want to do your music, you know, you're going to have to get signed to a record label, right? That's what I'd say. And he goes, yeah, or I'll do it myself. I said, you know, you need business skills for that, right? What if they're going to present you a contract, you can't read the contract. What are you going to do then?
You can't reply eloquently.
Or you can't reply eloquently. What are you going to do then, right? So, you know, you can learn business in school. What if the thing with school, what I say to young people as well is that school is not only about the grades, it's how to engage with other people. These are social skills that you pick up in school. The reason why you send your child to Oxford or Cambridge is not because of the grades, right? Yep. It's not because of the grades. If you look at Russell Group universities, yeah, absolutely. The top 20 universities in the country, there's not much difference in the grades. The reason why you send your kid to Oxford or Cambridge is because chances are somebody sitting in his class might be the future prime minister. Yeah. If you go to University of Barking, it's probably not going to be the future prime minister from the University of Barking. I'm telling you that now. So what I'd say to your son is I say, okay, it's all well and good yet with the music, but I'll break it down like this. There's so many things that you can learn in school, so many things you can network. I'll probably say, okay, perhaps, so there's things like the Brit School. Yeah. I say, okay, you know, the Brit School where Adele, who else went there? Asha D, no, Ashley Walters now. We call him Asha D, right? All these people, you know, you need to get top grades to get into that school. Yeah. So the way I'll break it down to him is I'll say, again, it's bridging. I would find out, it's really hard to say without talking to the young man, but I would find out what are your particular aspirations and how can we bolt on school with that? Fine, you don't want to get the good grades, but what I'd ultimately say is having good grades gives you more options than having bad grades. Yeah, and that's what sometimes life is about is having options.
The long game.
The long game.
I feel like with these kids, they just think everything comes. It's like when they live in a microwave society. Ping, they got it. Ping, they have it. Ping, they have access. And because they have so much information and so many opportunities and so much choice, they don't know what to do with it.
Do you know one thing I would say that I'm getting from Karl is that parents have to talk to their children, not dictate,
not at them.
not like in the scenarios we've given about a child doesn't want to go to school or they're not interested. You can't just say
you have to go to school,
right? Which is what parents used to do because they just tell us what to do and we must do it. Yeah. But that's not going to work. So you have to, and some parents do think, why do I have to? Explain, to my child. Why do I have to negotiate and things like that? But if what the outcome you want is to get your child to go to school and be interested in education, then take a moment to listen to them, find out what is going on, what are the reasons, like I said, or what they're interested in, have a conversation, and then try to, from there, like you said, from what they're saying, you will know where to steer that conversation. And
also, just to jump on that, it's also, when we talk about education, another thing is we've got to talk about something called modalities. What I mean by modality is the way that I'm not being funny. The way that we teach things in school is dry. Dry. Right?
Like
so
the desert.
Absolutely. So when I was growing up, learning history, I was like, oh my gosh, like shoot me in the head
Drop
right now.
Out.
I love history now. I watch Netflix, not for the films. I watch it for the documentaries because it's the modality. It's the way that I receive that particular information. Does that make sense? So for example, in one place I worked in, the kids hated Shakespeare. But the school got something, I don't know if it was a Carlos thing, but they got something, I think it is a Carlos thing, hip hop Shakespeare. And they came down and it was one of the best things I've ever seen. So they did Romeo and Juliet, but instead of being in, 14th century Italy, it was on estate. So Romeo was from one estate, Juliet was from one estate, and the kids loved it. They were like, oh my gosh, because of the modality of it. So sometimes with that particular child, if they're struggling with a particular subject, see if you can go on YouTube. There's lots of, again, brilliant resources like you can look that you can use. So there was something called for English called Fug Notes, which was on YouTube. Wisecrack did it and it was brilliant. So you got this guy who's like a gangster rapper explaining like literature, and it was it was funny, it was entertaining, but the way he did it got the kids into it, if that makes sense. So it's all about the modalities, but again, it's about conversations, as Shells was saying. It's about having those conversations.
And you have to take the time to have those conversations. And I know parents, we're busy, like we are busy, and it would just help if your child could just go to school Monday to Friday while you go
and not complain.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, not in the morning and while you're getting ready for work. It would be really helpful.
They're just getting ready for school.
You'd be doing me a big favour if you could just get up and do that, because I've got a lot of other things to do before I go to work and all that. That would be helpful, but it doesn't go that way. So you have to take the time to have the conversations, to explain. And that will create, and again, what we're mentioning is nothing to do with your academic knowledge, which is what a lot of parents think is stopping them from helping their child with their education. It's nothing to do with that.
It's always, what I found with my son in particular is his motivation to do anything is heavily tied into how he's feeling about other stuff. So stuff with his peers, stuff with the family, if there's a disconnect with us or whatever. There was a period at the beginning of this year where I took him out of school, midterm, called the school, said to them, look, my son's not doing very well. I'm not doing very well with him. He needs to spend some time with me, and he needs to then spend some time with his dad, because there's been a gap of communication, and I know my son. Put it down to illness, mental health, whatever you want to put it down on the register to authorize it, but it's happening. They didn't really put much of a fuss up, really, to be honest.
In a situation like that, I commend you for being honest with them, because some parents wouldn't have even shared that with them. The kid just wouldn't have been at school. And I know from someone who monitored attendance, the kid's just not there, and parents were sharing the reason with us. So it was great that you even shared the reason with them, because really the school then should have offered support.
They did. In the end, they did.
Do you see what I mean? That's what schools have. They also they have their own counselling services. They have mentors and stuff. They should have been like, okay, what can we do?
But I'm like, look, he has a mentor. He's had counselling. He has a lot of intervention, on that side of things, because I'm hot. I work in education, so I know what a school provides and what is available. So I'm hot on it. So as soon as I see an issue, I'm like, right, so when are we getting the mediators? Because I'm on it. So they can't really fob me off with, we're going to put him in the inclusion room. And no. So I was very vocal, I was very upfront, and I think a lot of parents could do with being a bit more upfront, if I'm honest. And
they should be, parents should demand, like...
Yeah, I was in the position to be able to take that time because I don't go into a school anymore. And I just told them the truth. But it was beautiful because my son lit up. He was more himself. He was eating better. He was moving more.
It's great to hear.
He was just interested in being around us all. He was just happier generally. And then he went back to school and he had a much better ride.
Yeah.
Does he still not like school? No, he doesn't. He's never going to understand why some people are rude for no reason and, you know, have a stick up their backside. And some teachers are just amazing, just cool, down to earth and nice. And as I said to him, this is society. Your school is a window into what you're going to be dealing with.
Absolutely.
One, in the world of work, and two, just socially, generally. So get on with it, sort of thing, like in the nicest way possible. But it is difficult. And I feel like when you tap into your child's mental health and where they are, and if you can get that connection with them, it might mean you have to go to the park and play basketball because your son might not open up sitting down on the couch talking. Sometimes that's what I've had to do. Or I've taken him and said, let's go
play basketball.
Let's go for a drive. Let's go for a because like, let's go and see something. And he'll be like, yeah, okay. Or let's go and get a milkshake. And then he'll tell me something in the car that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Absolutely.
It might be a drama with his friends, but that's given me insight into how he thinks, and two, how he perceives his peer group.
Absolutely.
So it's about just reconnecting again, as you said before.
And as can I just say, that's beautiful. What you've just described is
hard.
Beautiful. It's hard. As somebody once said to me, parenting is simple but hard. And what you've done there, I have to commend you on that. That is brilliant. Because what I say, often, and again, I've gone to schools, councils, and they've asked me for advice. And it's like, we don't understand why these young people join gangs. Why are they joining gangs? They're throwing their life away. And I say, they're not joining these gangs to go and stab and kill people. They're joining because they want to get that affirmation, that closeness. When you see a young man who's trying to cover his face up, he's not covering his face up necessarily to look aggressive, but he's covering his face up because he doesn't want to appear vulnerable. Yeah. And that's the difference. So when I've spoken to young men, and again, in our society, I always say this, right? Anger is the bodyguard of pain, right? Especially with young men. So let me break that down. If you have a young man who, for whatever reason, just say his grandma died during COVID, what is more socially acceptable for him to do? To break down in tears and cry in front of the class, or to flip a table and swear at the teacher? Exactly. And that's the thing. So when I see a young man, and again, I'm not being genderist or sexist or whatever you, but anyway, that's a whole other, I can get myself into a lot of problems. But when I engage a young man and I see that type of behavior, I'm not thinking, raw, you know what I mean? He's mad or what? Yeah. I'm thinking there's a pain there he cannot express. And that's why sometimes they do what they do. So what you're doing with your son is absolutely fantastic. And this is what I would say. And again, we've got to be able to especially show our young men. I'm gonna go to bat for our young men to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show your emotions, to show your feelings. Express your feelings. Because what ends up happening is they get trauma, they bottle it up. Somebody steps on their foot, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's an explosion. It's like they walked on a landmine. 15 watts and you're dead. And I try to explain this to teachers all the time. It's like, I don't understand, why would he go and stab someone over glasses? I'm sorry, it's nothing to do with the sunglasses. That boy probably is, you know, in a state somewhere, 10 people living in one house, mum's not working, all these things happen. So the person that looked at him the wrong way or stepped on his shoe the wrong way was the straw that broke the camel's back. So what you're doing there is that safety valve of saying, look, son, I see you. I want to know. And sometimes it's not even a case of talking. It's just saying, like, son, I'm here. Or, my darling, my daughter, I'm here. You can do whatever. You can look in the air. And sometimes I've done that, even myself, with a young child that's, you know, a very, what we
not
call
really engaging.
Absolutely. Or emotionally dysregulated, to say, look, I'm that safe space. Or I'm that safe person, right? Even though you're doing all these things and I don't condone your behavior, I'm not condemning you.
Yes, that's
you understand?
One thing
There's a difference. There's a difference. So what you're doing there, I have to. My invisible hat goes off to.
I mean, let's just hope it pays off. Eh?
Yeah, and one tip I would add for some parents is that if they don't, I feel like obviously you had some knowledge, obviously from already being educated and stuff like that, to do that situation. If a parent doesn't feel that they can, there are services out there,
Absolutely.
you know, like certain teachers, mentors, counselors, there's, you know, charity organizers who are trying to offer these spaces for children and these services for children. So also as a parent, look to see what you can get your child involved in. Look for, and again, same goes for career opportunities, networking opportunity. Just a bit more than just school. Think what is the school offering? What's my local community offering? What else can you get your child into that's going to help develop their skills, help them mentally, help them with career opportunities. Just do a bit more. Like, you know, that's, I think when the kids are young, it's easy to think of things like, for example, my daughter, let's put her in swimming, ballet, because that's what you think, children, hobbies, I want to expose them to stuff. As they get older, I think sometimes you lose yourself. You're not, it's not as easy just to say, well, they like football, so we go football. What else can you do? And again, you don't even have to find any of these things on your own. You can just, like in schools, they have career people, advisors, but you have to be planting the seed into your child's head that they should be doing some things. Let's find you some things. Or you have to ask the questions to the school. What are you offering? Do you know what I mean? And then let them bring it to you.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us about your book, sir. Where can we get it?
Tell us about your book.
So this is called The Action Hero Teacher Classroom Management Made Simple. The reason why I wrote this book was for several reasons, actually. But I wanted to write this book for teachers who, basically, what I've noticed with a lot of teachers is that the training they got in school or when they're doing their PGCE to get their degree wasn't great. The behavior management was like, clap your hands and like all very Mary Poppins type of things. I was like, no, it's not going to work. When you're in inner city London, it's not going to work. But in all seriousness, I wanted to write a guide which was very plain speaking, humorous like myself, and it really gives the information in an easy way to understand, because a lot of these books, you guys have done it before, it's very pedagogical. Carl Jung and the theory of Jungian psychology and Sigmund Freud and all that type of stuff. I was like, no. So this is research backed, but I wrote this so that even a teacher, if you're a parent, somebody that works with, you know, a youth worker, anybody can read this and understand it. So I wrote this book in 2019. As I said, the first year, I think I only said 30 books, mostly to my family and one supply teacher. I kind of coerced, I forced him to buy the book. But during lockdown, and this was it's tragic, but it's tragic, but I'm trying to say there was a benefit. It's beautiful, but it's not, because obviously after what happened to George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matter movement, people are like, you know, we need to put more black educators in the spotlight. And again, I hate to say an advantage, because a man died and got murdered, but that put the spotlight on a lot of black educators, and from then this really kind of took off. So yeah, I got a royal title from it, all sorts. And my second book, The Action Hero Teacher 2, Teachers of the Lost Class, is coming out on the 2nd of December on Amazon, $9.99, Kindle £7.49.
Oh, he knows everything.
I know, come on, man. This is what I feed my kids with, man.
Go and buy.
He's in with the promo, guys.
Amazon, exclusive Amazon.
If we have any people that watch it who are teachers, then definitely get the book. But as Karl also said, as a parent, if you want to understand a bit more about why your child or children act the way they do, and how to try and engage with them, then the book, the book is worth giving
and
a
I'm
read.
not taking just from Sigmund Freud. I'm talking about rap music, football. I put everything in there to try and make it as down to earth as possible. So please go out and buy the book. Go to actionheroteacher.com. If you've got any questions, I even get parents emailing me and saying, I've got, you know, my son, how do I do this? Feel free. I'm very active on Twitter, Instagram, and I'm going to start TikTok soon. So you'll see me do the silly dances soon. Trust me. I'm going to be on TikTok. You get me? So yeah, just reach out. TikTok, BritTok. Listen, I'm an old man.
This is what it's like when
I'm
us old,
when we're trying to get down with the kids.
Yeah, we're trying to stay.
You know what? I accept it. I don't even shy away from it. Who wants to be the old man in a rave? You know that? Like, what you say? What you saying? Like, you're an old man. Like, just allow it. You know them ones there with the Usher leather jacket. There you go.
No, good. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Karl. Really do appreciate your time and your expertise. So this has been another episode of When the Kids Go to Bed, and we shall see you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Peace.